So, hello, and welcome to part 6 of our series, Postured for Purpose, Positioned for Promise. I am Zakiya Monique, Master Relationship Strategist, Transformational Speaker, Bestselling Author, Killer Connections. But in this stead, I am your Sunday School Remix Facilitator, and I am so excited about the opportunity to bring forth this message for you. So let's go ahead and show our screen from the beginning. And the scriptures that we're in today is the remainder of Genesis 46, because we kind of started at like verses 1 through 4 we touched on last time. If you haven't seen the other parts of the series, you definitely want to go back and check those out. And so here's where we are on our road to purpose. First of all, we had the place of preparation. Okay, place of preparation, which is where he was raised, where Joseph was raised, with his parents and his brothers. And I think they had one sister, but they just like never talk about her. So anyway, the pit, when they threw him into the pit, I think he was about 17, not 13, 17. The passage, nobody really talks about the passage much, right? They don't talk about what happened after the pit and in between the prison, right? So they just go straight from the pit, prison, to promise, all the P's. But the passage, okay, so the passage is what happened during the time when Joseph was sold to his cousins, to the time that he reached Potiphar's house, right? Because Potiphar's house was before the prison. So a part of the passage was Potiphar's house. Like, nobody talks about how did he go to prison? Like, what did he go to prison for? You know what I'm saying? So that's part of the passage. And then we go to what happened in the prison. And then we are at the point of the palace. We're at the point of the palace. And the palace has 2 bullet points under it. You notice today that they didn't have before, because we're going to bring those out, is purpose and promise. So we're on the road to purpose, right? On the road to purpose. Well, actually, you're going to find that he's been on the road. He's been in purpose the whole time. But purpose and promise is what's going to actually reveal itself in the palace. Okay. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is the palace. Now, what's happening in the palace? Okay. So, old trustee is booting up. This iPad tired, honey. Anyway. Okay, so we're at 42, chapter 42. I started like at 5, but this at this point Joseph had been remembered. He's not he's in the palace, and he has reached the place of promise. He's reached the place of promise. And here's the thing I want to bring out, that some of us, when we reach the place of promise, or when we reach the threshold of promise, sometimes we stop doing what we did to get there, to stay or to cross over. See, when you're at the threshold of somebody's house, you still haven't stepped over. Just because you're on the porch does not mean you in the house. And some of us will think because we're on the land of that person, right? Because we're on the land, we've made it. No, because I can still shut the door and lock it, and you be outside still. You're on the porch, but you're still outside. And see, some of us, when we reach the threshold of promise, when it's so close, we can taste it, we can touch it, we can feel it, we know it's coming, it's imminent, we will then lay up, we will back up. I remember seeing 2 ladies coming in for the end of the race, and one lady started running a little slower and had her arms up because she thought she had won, but the young lady who kept her endurance all the way through the end passed her and won the race. Won the race. This lady thought she had a leg up, and the whole time she let up toward the end, raised those hands in victory, and lost. See, we don't want to do that. We don't want to have our hands up almost at the finish line. We can see the finish line. We see people cheering, but what we don't realize is they're telling us, keep going, keep going. Don't stop. She behind you. Don't stop. The enemy is behind you. Don't stop. The adversary is behind you. Don't stop. Your enemy, your opposition is behind you. Don't stop. Keep going. No, put your hands down. Keep going. Run, run, run. And the whole time we think they're saying, yes, 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 but we have no idea. They're saying, no, go, go, go. She behind you. That lady had her arms up. She was smiling. And I mean, that girl zipped past her so fast and went right across them lines. And baby, she was devastated. You hear me? Devastated because she celebrated too soon. We have to be careful not to celebrate too soon, but to keep on working, keep on going, keep on obeying, keep on doing. I know you tired because I be tired too, but keep on. Be not weary in well doing, because then you will reap in your due season. Don't you understand? Don't you listen? Listen. I get tired of doing right too. Sometimes I just want to go out there and cut up just for the one time. Okay? Sometimes I just want to cut up for the one time. Just want to be irresponsible. Just want to be like, hey, I'm out here today. But the God in me that has instilled in me is like, not so. We will not squander the process. We will not squander all that I put in you. We will not squander your character. No. No. And so remember that just because you reach the place of promise does not mean that you've actually reached the promise. Okay? Because he had not gone through all of it yet. And so can't you imagine that after 17 years old, first of all, your brothers hated you your whole life. You don't even know why. Your brothers hated you your whole life. They ain't even talk to you right. And these are your older brothers. Like, who doesn't want a big brother that they can admire? He had like, what, 10 big brothers? He had 10 big brothers and none of them liked him. Probably except Reuben. I really think Reuben had a soft spot for Joseph. I just do. I just think he had a soft spot for Joseph. And I think because Reuben was wise enough, that oldest child sometimes, they've been through enough with the parents, and sometimes, the parents grow up with them. And so they have a little bit more wisdom sometimes. In most cases, they have a little bit more wisdom than the other children. And Reuben was the oldest. And so, but for the most part, he had 10 big brothers and they ain't like him. They ain't talk to him well. They didn't like him. And then when he turned 17, he got his daddy using him as a lookout, pretty much, and then when he turned 17, the brothers put him in the pit. He like, dang. Okay. Sold him to the cousin. Dang. Then the cousin sold him to Potiphar. Dang. Potiphar's wife like, let me get some of them goods. Dang. Potiphar sent him to jail for nothing. Dang. He go to jail, he prophesy, tell them what's going on with their dreams, interpret their dreams. Don't forget about me, old boy, go right upstairs and forget about him. Dang. You think Joseph wasn't tired of doing right? And telling people, no, it's not me, but God. He like, is it God? At some point, you like, is it God? Don't you hear? God, do you see this? Do you see what they doing to me, God? I don't know about y'all, but I'm asking, God, do you see this? They tripping. Get your kids. Okay? You don't think Joseph was tired? You don't think Joseph was weary and well doing? I do. Because he's human. He was human. And we are too. But the thing about God is I thank God for his strength. He will give you strength. He will give you wisdom how to get out of that time of being weary. If we ask, he said, all you got to do is ask for wisdom. God, give me wisdom to defeat weariness. He like, okay. He said, just ask me. I'll give it to you liberally. I'll give you a lot of it. But we don't ask. We don't ask him, Lord, I'm weary, and give me wisdom to defeat weariness. We could ask him that stuff, but we don't. Give me wisdom to overcome this. Give me wisdom to overturn that. Give me wisdom. We don't ask. Okay? And so he's like, that's your fault that you don't ask. Because if you'd ask, I'd give it to you liberally. Yeah, a lot of it. All right? So, he reached a place of promise, but he wasn't quite, it hadn't happened yet. But remember, he had to be postured for purpose well before he was positioned for promise. And the proper posture starts with obedience, which then leads to honor. Many of us will try to honor without obeying. Like, how does that work? How do you honor somebody, but you don't want to obey? How, it amazes me when we get married, we don't want to say that we'll obey our husbands. Well, then, baby, what you want? What you get married for? Why you marrying somebody that you don't want to obey? How he gonna be responsible for you if you're not willing to obey? If you don't think his leadership is enough to instruct you, then why would you? Why? It's because of how we were taught and what we saw. Many of us saw raggedy husbands. And so we thought to ourselves, I wouldn't obey him, and I ain't obeying him either, because I see what happened when somebody obeyed this one. I saw what happened to my grandma when she was submissive to my granddaddy. He had a batch of babies on her, and she had to ask him for money for stockings because she ain't had no job. So she had to sit there and deal with that. So when we saw submission done wrong, we faulted submission. We said submission was wrong. No, your granddaddy was wrong. Your granddaddy was wrong, not submission. Submission is a beautiful thing when you submit to the proper person, to the proper process, to God. Submission is beautiful because what it means is, oh, you ain't got to worry about that. I got that covered. And you know from their word that they got it covered for real. But it was your granddad and all of his brokenness and all of his issues or what have you that he had gone through. That's your granddaddy's issue. That ain't got nothing to do with God. Okay? So let's get healed so that when we move forward and when we get married, we can truly choose somebody or accept, because they choose us, accept if you're a woman, and accept somebody, accept marriage and enter into marriage with someone that you can follow their leadership to the point where you will say, yes, I would obey my husband because I know he wouldn't put me in harm's way. I know that he would hurt himself before he would hurt me. I know that he's going to make sure that we're okay and taken care of. I know this. And when you know this, then you can rest in what he says and what he does. And guess what? You always cultivate the God in you so that if your husband go to the ziggity boom and ziggity boom, when your husband go to the left and to the right, God will tell you, okay, this is where we stop. Because one thing that God is not going to do is leave you unaware. If you cultivate and nurture the spirit in you, then the spirit is always going to tell you, watch him, watch that. Hold on, something ain't right with him. Want to see something different? And so therefore, that discernment will rise up in you, and then you will know, okay, wait a minute. Because see, what we don't understand about honor is honor for anybody or anything never, ever, ever trumps our honor for God. So if I honor God first, as a matter of fact, my husband should marry me because I honor God first, because that is the way that he knows that I won't get mad at him and go out there and turn up. That is the way that he knows that I'm going to govern myself accordingly in and out of his presence. That is the way that he knows that I'm going to make sure my home is run like a well-run machine. It's oiled up and run like a well-run machine, well-oiled machine. And so therefore, this is how he knows that I'm going to govern myself and I'm going to pray over him and I'm going to cover him as the leader of our family. So I am going to cultivate my relationship with God so that in the event that anything tries to come and supersede that, I will say, not so. Not so. In honoring my husband, I honor God. So we have to understand that the proper posture starts with obedience, and then it leads to honor. The more you obey, it's easier to honor. When I obey you and you keep your word and I see that you protected me and you covered me, just think about God. Think about when you first came into your relationship with God. You didn't know him. You just knew what they said about him. You didn't know him for yourself. You just knew what you had been told about him. But when you started to have encounters and experiences yourself, and he started making a way for you, and he would tell you to go left and go right, or go do this and go do that, and you would do it, and things worked out. The more things worked out, the easier it was to honor. You know why? Because honor is a little bit different than obedience. And we'll talk about the differences in just 1 second. But the proper posture starts with obedience, which leads to honor. See, we obey God, we obey our parents, and then we honor God and we honor our parents. And then we honor our husbands. But honor comes after we learn to obey. See, in the place of preparation, Joseph did what? He obeyed his father. In Potiphar's house, he had an allegiance to God. He honored God at that point. After he obeyed his father, he learned to honor. Prison, he honored God through the use of his gift. He said, do not, interpretations belong to God. In the palace, he honored God through the use of his gift that God had. He said, God will give you the answer of peace. So he honored God. The higher he was elevated, he honored God. But it first started with obedience to his father. Obedience to his father. Oftentimes, single ladies, oftentimes, how well we will do in marriage comes from how well we will honor God in our single season. And maybe I should teach on that, because oftentimes we do single season wrong, and then we get married and wish we were single again. Because either we picked the wrong one to enter into marriage with, or we long for that time that we would have had to ourselves, with just us and God, and no responsibilities and nobody else to care for, to worry about, to look after, or whatever. Nobody to share our space with. Because I'm telling you that once you get used to the single life, when somebody comes into your space, you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta share my closet. Okay, all right, you're gonna be here every day. All right, I like you. I love you. But my gosh, you're gonna be here. Wait, you gotta sleep in here? Ooh, okay. All right, I gotta move all my stuff, because after a while you start to get used to it. And you love the time that you spend with God, and you love the freedom of not having to worry about nobody else, especially if you have had to dedicate your life to children and helping with parents and helping with family and all that. And you finally get to a point in your life where it's just me. I ain't gotta worry about nobody else. If I want to jump in the car and drive to Chicago today, I can. Baby, but then when you get a husband, you got to consider him. You got to cook dinner. You got to wait a minute. And don't get me wrong, the husband absolutely comes and takes things off of your plate as well. Okay, so he comes and takes things off your plate. So please don't think that marriage is slavery. Marriage is not. If you feel like marriage is slavery, you ain't ready for marriage, because marriage is not slavery. Okay, marriage is not, oh man, I got another kid I gotta take care of, I gotta cook for him, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Listen, it should bring us much joy to love on somebody that's loving on us. It brings me great joy to serve man. It brings me great joy to serve man. It brings me great joy to put a plate in front of man. It gives me great joy to take care of mine, because he takes care of you. It's easy to take care of somebody that take care of you. And I'm not just talking about financially, because we got to get out of thinking that provision is only financial. But with somebody that helped me set my emotions straight, with somebody that covers me, with somebody who lets me be 100% vulnerable and human, and come lay and cry in their arms after I have been tough with the world and been out here in purpose, that in and of itself is enough for me to want to take care of you. So unless you are just a very damaged individual, which is nothing wrong with it, just get healed. You take great pride in taking care of somebody who takes care of you. So it's not slavery. Okay, it's not slavery. But each time he honored God, he was elevated. And every time he was elevated, he honored God. You see how that go? You see how that went? Every time he was elevated, every time he honored God, he was elevated. And every time he was elevated, he honored God. Ain't that an amazing cycle to be in? You elevate me, I honor you. You elevate me, I honor you. You honor me, I elevate you. You elevate me, I'm honoring you. You honor me, I'm elevating you. Ladies, if we get in this posture with God, a man can't have us until he go through God's heart. So guess what posture we gonna have with our husband? You love on me, I love on you. You love on me, I honor you. You honor me, I love you. You love on me, I honor you, because honor to men is love. Okay, so men like to be honored, respected. Okay, to them, if you honor them, that's their love. That's the way they interpret love. So I honor him, he loved me more. He loved me more, I honor him more. You see the cycle? You see how it translates right on into marriage? Why? Because we started it first with God. You elevate me, I honor you. And that translates right on into marriage as what? I honor him, he loved me. The more he loved me, the more I honor him. The more I honor him, the more he loved me. And it just keeps going. Okay, it just keeps going. And so the difference between obedience versus honor is, first of all, your posture. Posture is the main difference, because even the Bible says that we can obey out of obligation. See, somebody can obey because they think they're gonna get something from you. Look at your kids. Your kids will be like, let me do these dishes so I can get these jeans. Let me do these dishes so I can get these shoes. Let me do this so I can get this. That they ain't doing it because they honor you. They doing it because they want them jeans. And we do the same thing as God's kids. Let me obey God so I can get what I want. That's not cheerful giving. And see, even the Bible says that God don't want that. God don't want your obedience or your product associated with the obedience if you give grudgingly. That's in 2 Corinthians 9:7. He said, if you got to give grudgingly, please keep it. Keep it all. Keep the obedience and keep whatever you was finna do. He don't want the obedience, and he don't want the product of the obedience either. He don't want it. Don't give me the money neither. He said, just keep the money, keep the obedience. If you're going to do it with a grudging heart, if you're going to do so, posture is the huge difference between obedience and honor, because obedience can be done out of obligation. Honor can't. Honor cannot, because honor requires a few more things. See, honor comes with a high level of respect. You can't fake that. You can't fake like you respect somebody, because in some instances that leads to admiration and reverence. You can say you admire somebody, but them actions is gonna show that you really don't. See, I don't have to like you or agree with you or everything that you do to respect you. Because I can respect the way you do a thing, even if it's something that I don't like that you do. Now, understand that the Bible says that we should honor our parents. That's the first commandment with promise. But it also tells parents not to provoke the children in the very next scripture. And we seem not to want to read down to number 4. I remember my uncle one time got mad at me. I mean, he was heated because he kept quoting, the Bible says, honor thy mother and thy father. I said, keep reading. What you saying? I said, I'm saying, read the next scripture. It don't say nothing. Yes, it do say something. Read the next scripture. And of course, me being me, I whipped out the Bible. I said, honor thy mother and thy father. And I went on, and it may be well with thee, and he will, blah, 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 blah. I said, and then number 4, verse 4 says, provoke thy not the child. What? Yeah, you ain't read that part, did you? Because it didn't benefit you. See, we can't say the word ain't there because it don't benefit our argument. No, it's there. You got to take it all. Got to eat it all. You can't just eat a piece of it. And Ephesians 6:2-4, it talks to both sides. That's what I love about God. God is like, I talk to both sides. Children, obey your parents. Honor your mother and your father. Yes, absolutely. But parents, you can't take advantage of that. Parents, you can't be bullies. Parents, you can't, you know what I'm saying? Hey, so parents, you can't supersede me either as God. Is what God says. So when God tells us to honor our parents, it does not mean above him or his commandments. When God tells us to honor our parents, it don't come with an expiration date either. It's called legacy. My father is gone, but I still honor my father in the way that I conduct myself. Think about it. When people see you, do they say, you know what? She was brought up well. Just because of the way she conducts herself and then brings up her children. What do they say about you? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we should be just so fully invested in, but how do you carry yourself? Do you acquiesce to the world and what the world say, or do you still honor, respect your elders and take care of people and things of that nature? Because sometimes the only good that they see is in us. Because this world has gone pure nuts. I'm talking about spiraling out of control. Okay, so understand that there are, that as parents, even now, as parents, we can't just say what we want to say and you just got to deal with it. No, we have a charge. They have a charge. God does not play about when it comes to relationships at all. If you pay attention throughout the Bible, God honors relationships. He honors right relationships. He don't play about relationships in the Bible. He give aspects to both sides. If you look in Ephesians, guess what he said? Well, I think it's Ephesians. When he talk about husbands and wives, you do this. Husbands, you do this. Children, you do this. Parents, you do this. He talks to both sides. He does not just say, men, y'all can just do what y'all want to, talk how y'all want to, beat her up if you want to. No, he says, you husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Wives, honor your husband. He talked to both sides. So there's no way we should be going in the Bible, getting one side and then taking it and no, not at all. All right. So getting back to our story, remember Joseph's brothers were all older than him except Benjamin, right? Now, fast forward, we're in 42. At this particular time, Joseph is about 37, 38-ish. Okay. Now they threw him in the pit around age 17. He was 17. So it's been about 20 years since they've seen him, because remember, when he got to the palace, he was 30. So when he got to the palace, he was 30, but they had already been through 7 years of good times. Because remember, they had to go through 7 years of good times, and then they were going to go through 7 years of famine that was going to make them forget about them good times, right? And so therefore, Joseph had already reigned for like 7 years. Okay, he had already reigned for 7 years. And so with that being said, Joseph was about 37, 38. So it's been 20 years since he's seen his brothers, right? It's been 20 years since he's seen them, they seen him. So here's the thing that was mind-boggling to me, because there are some pieces in this story that, you just really got to pray to God about revelation, because I just had some questions. So Jacob's brothers are grown and they have wives and families and servants of their own, right? Because remember, Judah went off and married Tamar in what? I think that was chapter 38. I think that was a whole chapter 38. Like, so they went off and got married and had children and all this type of stuff. So why did their father have to tell them to stop looking at each other before they starve? Did that just do something to you? That just did something to me. Because if you got a wife, you got children, you got servants, you are the leader. This was a very patriarchal society that they lived in. You didn't hear them talk much about women per se, in charge especially, right? Matter of fact, like, did Potiphar's wife even have a name? Like, you know what I'm saying? They didn't even we just know her as Potiphar's wife. Lot's wife. Like, did they even have names sometimes? Like, no, they just, okay, that's who she was, his wife. So we're living in, this is a very patriarchal society. And you mean to tell me that the 10 of y'all can't get together and make a decision on y'all not starving? So I can understand if your father heard about the corn in Egypt. I can understand him telling y'all about it. But the point at which he's telling y'all about it, the point at which he tell me about it, I'm gonna be on the phone with my sister and I'm gonna be like, hey, listen, so they got some corn in Egypt. We taking your car, my car, or another time they ain't have cars. So we about to mount up on these horses or camel or whatever, right? We finna get on these camels and go get this corn because we ain't about to starve. But the 10 men, I just told you, Joseph was 37, 38-ish. At least. So if he almost 40, how old are they? Okay, even if she had them stair steps, they had to be almost 50. So that means that you mean to tell me you 50 years old and your daddy got to tell you to go get some corn before your stomach touch your back and your kids fall out? Okay. Okay. I don't know if that was a little off to y'all, but that was a little off to me. So here's the thing that God brought out to me. If Joseph had remained in Canaan, he quite likely would have been the same way, unable to think for himself. Why? Because Joseph, let's think about this thing here. When Joseph was in Canaan with his brothers, I know he was 17. I get it. And I know their society was not set up quite like ours. I get it. However, think about it. Joseph was very, very naive, because when he received the 2 dreams, what did he do? He went and told the brothers that wouldn't even talk to him. So he wasn't thinking either. Everybody got their whole mindset from Jacob. Everybody acquiesced to everything Jacob said, right? And the only time they came up with a plan was when they wanted to kill Joseph. And they couldn't even come up with that themselves. They had to congregate amongst the 10 of them, well, 9, because Reuben like, look here, don't kill him, okay? But they had to congregate and they all had to come up with a plan together. Like, you don't see any of them leaving to make any wise decisions. Judah ran off and married somebody, and it was a whole catastrophe. So none of them could think independently. None of them could think independently and do well. God has to isolate us sometimes to instill the part of him in us that goes against what our parents may have taught us, because sometimes they taught us things out of fear or out of the desire to control or out of a place of jealousy, bitterness, and resentment. In this case, Jacob didn't like Leah. He didn't want Leah. He rejected Leah. He hated her. It said Leah was hated. Okay, Leah was hated. The Bible said that, not me. And so if Leah was hated, who was she hated by? Her husband. Probably her sister too, by the time she started popping babies, and her sister couldn't have no kids. You know, Rachel couldn't have no kids. So Rachel probably had a little hate toward Leah too. But it said Leah was hated. And one of the people that I know hated her for a fact was her husband. You know how I know? Because he ain't like them kids neither. Look at how a person treats your kids. You'll know if they like you or not. And look how a person's kids respond to you. You'll know if they like you or not. Because kids don't forget. Kids don't tighten up when somebody come around and start faking. Kids be still looking at you like, we don't like you. That's why every time, you know, even as an adult, every time we would have gatherings and stuff, you know, because I didn't drink or smoke, you know, whatever. So when folks start drinking and smoking, I go back there with the kids because the kids knew all the goods. And did nobody tell them not to tell. I would go back there with the kids and I would listen to the kids, because the kids gonna tell you everything. They're gonna tell you everything you need to know. Okay, so understand that God sometimes isolates us or take us away from our family. He told Abram, go to a place, just get up and go away from your family to a place that I'm gonna show you. I ain't even gonna tell you where you're going right now. Just get up and trust me. Get up and trust me and start walking that way. Go to a place that I will show you, but get up away from your family. Why? Because sometimes you have to be isolated. And sometimes people will be like, oh, you got to move. Sometimes you don't have to physically move. God will separate you and you can still live in the same house, but he will separate you and sever the ties for a time so that he can groom you to do the thing that he wants you to do. So think it not strange if he severs the ties. Now, I said I was going to release a video about black sheep because I'm tired of people with that. Okay, I'm tired of everybody swearing they're a black sheep, and sometimes you're just not a black sheep. You just disrespectful. Okay, people don't like you because you're disrespectful. All right, and there's a difference between being a black sheep because you stand for righteousness, or being rejected because you stand for righteousness and you just being out of pocket. Okay, out of pocket and out of order. Total difference. Okay, and some of us claim a black sheep, and we really, really, really need to claim out of order and apologize. I'm just saying. So anyway, so remember, everywhere Joseph was, he was in charge. Meanwhile, his brothers had to be told to go get corn before they and their families and servants starved. You see the difference there? Everywhere Joseph went, he was in charge. He started off small. He was at, at Potiphar's house. Then he was over the whole prison. Then he was over the whole Egypt, with the exception of Pharaoh. So God elevated him every time. He trusted him with a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. He groomed him. No matter where he was in charge. This is how you know when there's a call on your life, because no matter where you go, baby, I could be at the bus stop minding my business in the rain. Somebody is going to come to that bus stop and tell me their relationship problem. Do y'all know I was in the aisle 2 weeks ago looking for some ginger dressing? Looking for some ginger dressing. I was in the Oriental, the world aisle, the world foods aisle. Here come Mr. Bill, white man, rolled up on his little roller, told me his problems. In the aisle, 10 minutes left to go at Kroger, trying to get me some ginger dressing. It just don't matter. It don't matter where you are. You can't run from your purpose. It's been with you since the day you were born. It's been with you since God knew you before you were in your mother's womb. So it's been with you before even you were created. People don't understand sometimes. I'll come home and be totally quiet. Like, and people think I'm mad, and I'm not mad. Or they'll say, you know, I ain't heard from you. Baby, I'm tired of talking. Because I do it all the time. Because that's my gift. To speak into the lives of people, to speak, to speak, to speak. So when you are an oracle for God, sometimes you value silence. You value silence. I need silence. First of all, to get down low. Second of all, because I just need to rest. Because I've been talking all day. I can be at work and somebody gonna come and tell me all their stuff. It don't matter where I'm at. Why? Because that's my purpose. Same thing with being in charge. They always want me to hold the money. I'm always involved with the money somehow, some way. Can you be the treasurer? Can you be the secretary and the treasurer and the CEO? If you want me to be the president, the secretary, the treasurer for my class, can you be the president, the secretary, and the treasurer? Baby, no. But you will start to see that people will trust you with this thing, with this thing. And everywhere he went, they had the same response. God is with him. He gonna be over everything. Listen to him. God is with him. He gonna be over everything. Listen to him. But if Joseph would have remained in Canaan, he quite likely would not have been able to be elevated this way, be trusted to be over the entire Egypt. If God had sent him from Canaan to Egypt on a chariot and told him, you're going to be over Egypt, without elevating him the way that he did, he quite possibly would have messed it up. And that's why we need God's process. We need God's pruning. We need it so that when we get to the place of promise, we won't do like that lady and put our hands up before we win. And even after we win, we're not busy trying to gloat, but we busy trying to reach our hand back to help. We busy trying to say, God, what you want me to do from here? We're busy trying to hear. We want to hear, Lord, you know, I'm trying to remain connected so that you can even develop me in the promise. We ain't worried about trying to show her up like, nah, see. No, forget nah, see. I saw another race and the young lady was looking at the clock when she won. She didn't care nothing about who was behind her or whatever. She was looking at the clock to see, did she do better than she did before? That's the posture we should have. Did I improve? Did I get better? Lord, what would you have me to do from here? Lord, I want to stay connected with you so that you can develop me in this place. Okay? So sometimes God has to to separate us so that he can elevate us. All right. Now those brothers, their daddy didn't have to tell them, what y'all looking at each other for? Look how he talking to them. They almost 50 years old. He said, what y'all looking at each other for? Go get the corn. And I'm like, he irritated with them. He was mad at them. I believe he was mad at them ever since they came back. First of all, he didn't like them, but he was mad at them since they ain't come back with Joseph. When they ain't come back with Joseph, they could forget it. Okay. But the brothers honored their father. They honored their father and went to Egypt themselves, because guess what? They could have obeyed their father and sent the servants. See, I just told you the difference between honoring and obeying. They could have obeyed their father. They didn't have to go. They could have sent their servants, but they honored their father. They honored the words that came out of his mouth, even if they were harsh words, even if it's something that they shouldn't have had to tell. He shouldn't have to tell them that. They honored him. Quite frankly, sometimes they might have honored him because they just they wanted his approval. Like, my gosh, why do you hate us so much? Just like we're part of you, a part of our mother, we're part of you too. And you just hate us. Like, my gosh. They could have sent their servants, but God's plan wouldn't have unfolded the way that it did. See, God is always in and about the details. So it is imperative that we seek clarity and obey as soon as we are clear. Stop playing like you didn't know what to do. Stop playing like you don't know what to do. When God reveals what to do and you know it is him, stop acting like you don't know it's him. Listen, sometimes we don't know it's him now. If it's very unorthodox, we're like, God, is this you? However, when we know it's him and we know what he said, stop playing, because guess what? He know your heart. Okay? So when Joseph's brothers arrived to buy the corn, they didn't recognize him, but he recognized them. 20 years later. 20 years later. See, as you grow in God, you look different because you are different. But they were the same. Still traveling in that group of 10. Still gotta have your daddy tell you what to do. This is what I mean by he had to be separated, because otherwise they would have been a group of 11. But as you grow in God, you start to look different. People be like, oh, you look different. Oh, you glowing, girl. You look so good. You look different. 20 years had passed and them brothers were still in the same place mentally. They were still in the same place. And he would have been too if he hadn't moved. But Joseph dealt harshly with them. Now, we do not know exactly why, because the Bible does not specifically tell us why. However, I prayed and I asked God for revelation. He showed me multiple instances that displayed that Joseph didn't do this because he had a vengeful heart. Because vengeance don't stop with just one person in one instant. Okay? If you have a vengeful heart, if you deal with vengeance, you get anybody who gets you. Okay? I know, because I've been there. You did something to me, I got you. And oftentimes vengeance comes from you being rejected and not ever being covered, or being abandoned and not ever being covered. So you learn to defend yourself, and you do it in a way in which you make sure you get your get back. They say, I'll get my lick. I'm getting my lick back. That's back in the day. I'm getting my lick back. And didn't nobody have to know I got my lick. As long as I knew that I did something to you, I was all right with it. That I'm so glad God delivered me, but I'm telling you, that's what it was. So, you know, it don't tell us specifically why, but I want to share a few instances with you, so that in your prayer time, you can kind of let God reveal to you what the situation was. So he showed me in multiple instances that displayed that Joseph did not have a vengeful heart. Number one, Joseph got out of prison and was second only to Pharaoh, but he did nothing to Potiphar, who imprisoned him, or Potiphar's wife, who wrongly accused him. It don't say a word about him getting him back. Because back in the day, they would have been on my list. They would have been on my list. Okay. And see, Potiphar was a high-ranking captain, but he did not rank over Joseph. Joseph was second in command to Pharaoh. Potiphar was a high-ranking captain in Pharaoh's army. So Joseph was over Potiphar. And see, sometimes God will put you over the person that you have a problem with, or put you in a position of authority, or a position where he can see, so he can see, will you pay them back? Are you really healed, or what? Did you really mean it when you said you forgave him and gave it over to me? Because I told you, vengeance don't stop with just one person. If you have a vengeful heart, you got a vengeful heart. And anybody can get it, okay? So Joseph never did anything. It never said that he did anything to Potiphar's wife or Potiphar. Potiphar's wife wrongly accused him, and Potiphar threw him in jail without even a thought of his character, which was impeccable with Potiphar. Joseph never punished the butler who forgot about him for 2 years. Just imagine, he interprets your dreams. He was already over the prison. He interprets your dreams, which he didn't have to do. He could have left you sitting there sad, okay? He asked you, don't forget about me. You go right up there and forget about him for 2 years. They bring him upstairs. He interprets the dreams. Pharaoh make him, basically the ruler of Egypt, second in command. You don't think he was over the butler? They didn't say nothing about him doing nothing to the butler. Another thing, Joseph had ruled for more than 7 years of feasting, but he never went back to Canaan to show off. You don't think he could afford a trip to Canaan? He was second in command over the whole land. Second in command of the whole land of Egypt. He could have went back to Canaan at any time to let them see. How many times do we see people go back to the place where they were rejected just to let them know what they missed or who they dissed? I remember, was it Maury Povich or Jerry Springer? One of them had a show, Look at Me Now. They had a segment of their show that was Look at Me Now. And these were people that came from high school And when in high school they were ugly or whatever. People said they were ugly. They had, big old thick glasses, they were fat or whatever. And when, they found this person, years later, they were in their 20s or 30s or whatever, and they found this person years later, and they want that person to see them now. So you mean to tell me you've been still focused on high school all these years? Yeah, because that thing hurt them. This is how we know when a person is fully healed, because once you make it out, baby, listen, when you fully healed, God bless you, okay? I don't care where you at, what you're doing. I just hope you're all right. All right, bye-bye. You have no need to go back and to tell them anything. You have no need to show them anything. I don't care if you see what I drive. I don't care if you see where I live. I don't care if you see what I have. I don't care. I've moved on. That's how we know. Because I don't need to, if I bump into you, all right, but if not, you'll never know. Because I don't care if you do. But there are some people who will go. I remember this guy had got fired from a job, and he made sure he drove his new work truck up to the job to let them know that he had gotten a job that was better. And he had to let the guys know at the job that he had gotten something better than, why? Because he wasn't healed. He felt rejected. And rejection will make you take pictures on Facebook so you can show your ex the new. Whole time you miserable with the new one too. Whole time you lay miserable. Look like y'all both need a help sign, but y'all just are smiling, but we can see it in your eyes. You just as miserable. When you still trying to prove something to the old one, you ain't finished with the old one. But when you finish with the old one, don't nobody got to know who you with. Don't nobody got to know what you doing or where you at. Honey, you just content with whoever you with. Matter of fact, don't put it on Facebook. I don't want nobody to know. I don't even want nobody speaking against it. I don't want to have to pray them prayers. Hey, let's move on. Okay. So Joseph had ruled for more than 7 years of feasting, but he never went back to Canaan to show off. And another point that we're going to get to in just a few minutes is Joseph wept throughout the process. He wept throughout the whole process of dealing with his brothers harshly. He wept. He was crying. One time he cried so loud that they heard him, Pharaoh people heard him like, well, dang, he in there crying. When you love someone, truly love someone, it hurts you to hurt them. This morning, when I was looking this over, I promise you, I just got this feeling that Reuben loved Joseph. Reuben loved Joseph. Despite the differences their father made, it just weighed heavy on him. And it hurt Reuben to hurt Joseph. And it hurt Joseph to hurt his brothers. When you can't say you love somebody with an agape love, because there are different types of love. I taught on the different types of love. And the problem is some of us are loving a person with an agape love that love us with the eros love. Eros is physical. So they like, yeah, I love you too. Can I get some? And you loving them with an agape love, and they love. So you got to make sure y'all on the same wavelength with the love. Because everybody that's saying I love you is not talking about the same type of love. But it hurt Joseph to even have to do this to his brothers. It hurt him. And I truly believe that he dealt harshly with them to act as an Egyptian, as part of a character, for two reasons. Number one, to find out the state of the family members back in Canaan. See, remember, Joseph knew what they had done to him. They didn't know it was him at the time dealing with them, but he knew it was them. And he remembered what they did to him out of jealousy. So the first thing he thought about was, where's Benjamin? He didn't see Benjamin with them. So he thought, uh-oh, did y'all hurt him or kill him? Then he wanted to know, is my father still alive? But he can't say, is my daddy still alive? Because he don't know the posture that they may have toward him still, right? Last time I saw you, you threw me in the pit. I'm not going to know if you love me or you longing for me or you regret what you did. So he's trying to, check their temperature. But, but the reason why, in my view, this is what God revealed to me. Now, I'm not telling you this is in the Bible, but this is what he revealed to me because I prayed and asked him for revelation. But he wanted to know, and he believed that they would tell him the truth as an official over the administration of the food that would save their lives. See, when the life on the line, a person will start to tell you some things, right? Look here, my brother, him right here, he do this right here. Him, people start telling you. Look, think about that in that interrogation room up at the precinct. When they get to talking about life and death penalties, baby, people start seeing things a little clearer. Would you like to know what time he did it? And would you like to know where he did it? People start telling you a whole lot of stuff. Why? Because they life on the line. Well, see here, their life was on the line too. Because if they ain't get no corn, I just told you, their daddy said, well, you gonna stand there and die? Your stomach already touching your back. You're gonna stand there and die? So he believed that they would tell him the truth if he posed as the official over the administration of the food that would save their life, as opposed to their long life brother that they never respected and thought was long gone or dead, because he didn't know if they regretted it. He didn't know Reuben was coming back for him. He didn't know Reuben had told them, don't kill him. He didn't know none of this stuff. So you got to understand, he was operating out of the guise of, they threw me in a pit. They don't like me. They never talked to me well. So he like, I don't know. All I know to go on is what I've been going on. Okay, so when he had last saw him, they wasn't on good terms. And the second reason I think that he did this is because he wanted to know if his brothers were the same. So when he threw them in jail, I want to know if you're the same. Pressure will show you a lot about a person. Words will tell you, but situations will show you. Do they have the same temperament, the same heart? And he wanted to bring them to repentance if they did. See, God sometimes has to take his hard-headed and hard-hearted children to greater depths to get them to turn from their wicked ways in just the same way. So Joseph put them in jail for 3 days because he's trying to see what's the temperament, what their heart's like. And remember, they didn't know it was him, so they didn't realize that Joseph knew their language. He knew what they were saying. Even though he had an interpreter there, he knew what they were saying. Because he spoke their language too, but they didn't know it was him. After 3 days, he told them to leave one brother behind and go back to Canaan and bring back Benjamin. Why? He didn't trust them. I just told you. He like, I don't know if they the same or not. I don't know. So I want to see Benjamin. I want to see that he ain't hurt, because they told him, oh, he back with our father. No. Bring him here. I want to see him. I want to make sure he's okay. Because see, y'all probably lied to my daddy about me. They began to talk amongst one another, not realizing that Joseph understood what they were saying. They figured he didn't know because he was an Egyptian. See, he had to play the part. And so they figured, oh, he's an Egyptian. He don't know what we're saying. You know, the interpreter know, but he don't know what we're saying. And so they started talking amongst themselves, not realizing Joseph could hear, and they thought they were being punished for their sins against Joseph. And Reuben then said, I told y'all not to sin against him. I told y'all, and you didn't listen. And now we got to account for his blood. And he turned around and he wept. Joseph turned around and wept. Why? It hurt his heart. He was still tender for his brother. He knew what the promise said. The promise said they were going to bow before him. They had already bowed, but he knew. He just didn't know what it was going to take for him to get to that point, but he knew what had to happen. He knew that his brothers were going to bow to him, but his heart was still tender to be accepted by them. His heart was still tender to his brothers, or for his brothers. And for all that had happened. Y'all hate me for what? I love y'all. I want to be accepted. He went told them the dream because he was excited. He wanted to be accepted, but he was naive. But Reuben said, listen, I told y'all not to sin against him. I told y'all not to. And see, my grandmother used to say that your sins will find you out. So ain't no need in hiding them, because here's the thing. And if you take nothing else from this, understand these things. What's hidden can't be healed. And what's not healed will soon be revealed. What is hidden cannot be healed. And anything that goes unhealed will soon be revealed. What you bury alive never dies, but it will arise. See, the thing you thought you got away with in arrogance, instead of repenting in humility, always beats, meets, and greets. It will beat you to your destination. It will meet you at the destination, and it will greet you and sometimes your generations. Because see, the thing that you call yourself hiding and thought you got away with and won't repent for, you'll see it spring up years later in your generations as a generational curse. Because generational curses start with dishonor. Don't you see the difference? Remember, I talked about posture starts with what? Obedience, and obedience leads to honor. But a generational curse starts with what? Dishonor. Starts with disobedience, which leads to dishonor. So you didn't get away with it. It's just going to come up differently. So Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, gave them their money back. They didn't know it. And gave them provision for their journey. So he even paid for their way. Paid their way there back. Made sure their donkeys had feed. Put their silver back in their bags. Why would he have done this if he had a vengeful heart? I told you, vengeance don't know no boundaries. He wasn't vengeful. He was hurting. Because he was saying, please come to repentance. Please, please, after 20 years, don't be the same. Please. And he wasn't sure. Because he's like, I don't know if y'all lying. I don't know if y'all done killed Benjamin or whatever. He like, please don't be the same after 20 years. And so he said, listen, y'all go ahead on back. But he told them, y'all leave Simeon here. Y'all leave one of y'all got to stay here. And he left, he took Simeon and they put Simeon in jail. But like I said, he turned around and he wept as they took Simeon. He wept. He wept when he heard them say that they shouldn't have done this to him. He wept to have to put his brother in jail. And so when the brothers stopped, for the night along their journey back to Canaan, one of them opened their bag to feed the donkey and realized that his money was there. So all this time they was walking, they didn't know their money was there because they just had their sacks and stuff. And they realized money and grain, and their hearts sank. And they turned to each other trembling, saying, what is this that God has done to us? See, sin, especially hidden sin, will make you see a blessing as a curse. Because I just told you it was a grievous famine. It was a terrible famine in the land. And he just gave them food and their money back and paid for their way there and back. But they saw it as a curse because of the sin that they had done. Sin will cause you to tremble in fear instead of thanking God for your provision. Sin will make you reach out to your brother instead of asking God for direction. Sin will make you paranoid and skeptical of everything and everyone, especially hidden sin. And so they told their father, when they reached Canaan, they told their father what happened. And he said, you deprived me of my children. Like they wasn't his kids. You deprived me of my children. Joseph is gone. Now Simeon is gone. And you want me to send Benjamin? No. No. So he ain't trust him either. He like, y'all left here 10 and came back 9? No. I seen you do this before. Nope. 11 went out and 10 came back last time. Nah, 10 left, 9 come back. Nah, we ain't doing this again. And he told them no. And they're like, but the man got Simeon and he said it won't come back. Nope. And that's where we're going to leave off at, because this is all a part of purpose and promise. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording to ask, see if we have any questions.